Let's revisit the Mirror Universe, one of those fun little fixtures in Star Trek that keeps coming back. Much ink and pixels have been spilled dissecting it as an alternate timeline. What's the point of Divergence? Is it World War II, the Roman Empire, maybe just that moment when Zefram Cochrane capped the Vulcans? But I don't think that's the way to look at it, because whenever someone finds themselves interacting with that mirror universe, everything is duplicated. Places, people, institutions, but in a warped way.
Everything's duplicated. Almost. Another Enterprise? Spock with a beard?
Another Captain Kirk, another Dr. McCoy, and
An exchange.
Most places and ships that are found in our universe, like the Cooper, exist here. The same goes for people.
It never diverges from the prime timeline. It runs underneath it like a shadow or a sewer. And it always mirrors the prime universe because it doesn't actually exist independently. Rather, it reflects the collective subconscious of the people interacting with it. Admittedly, this is my interpretation, nothing more. I'm not arguing that it's the canon explanation, but it is more consistent with the canon than any convoluted, perpetually parallel history. When we first see it in the original series, the Terran Empire is an extremely aggressive expansionist power. It conquers those outside, and within it is utterly treacherous. Advancement is by devious maneuvering, usually involving the death of one's immediate superior in order to take their place. It's not really workable as an advanced technological society, but it does reflect undercurrents in the Federation on a more macro level and on a personal level. The Federation at that time is also expansionist, pushing its boundaries ever outward. It does so through partnerships, alliances, fueled by a desire to explore. But it is having a string of successes, growing like it's inevitable, and at this point humanity is still quite young as an interstellar power. It's also new and exciting, and the mirror to that, the Terran Empire, tracks. It's more brutal, but it too is a young and vibrant civilization high on its own successes. It's a cruder, though more primal incarnation of the Federation. Perhaps more honest, embracing that we're awesome and can do anything on its crudest level. Yes, the Federation is made up of many different species and cultures, but we see it from a very human-centric perspective. Most of the characters are human or part human and part of that culture, and the mirror universe we see reflects that. When we next see the mirror universe in Deep Space Nine, things are very different. The Empire has fallen, humanity is enslaved, the days of conquest and glory are turned on their head into defeat and squalor. And that also mirrors the Federation at that time in some significant ways. At the start of Deep Space Nine, the Federation has long since transformed into a hegemonic power with a range of peacekeeping, power projection, and routine diplomacy to tend to. They still have that exploration mission, but they seem to be doing mostly Space Navy stuff. Superpower maintenance. That youthful vigor has turned into sensible middle age, and with it worries and perhaps regrets have started to crop up. Enter the Dominion. Entire seasons of DS9 are spent slowly building up the threat of a massive Dominion invasion of the Quadrant. And how does the Federation meet it? Patriotically beating the war drums in anticipation of vanquishing another foe? A call to a grand moralistic crusade to free the subject peoples of the Gamma Quadrant? With cold, calculating strategy to surgically neutralize the threat? No, mostly they wait in dread for the Dominion attack. It's hardly a surprise, then, that the mirror shows that old militaristic audacity replaced with dreary defeat. Before jumping into the retcon machine with Enterprise and Discovery, there's something else that has to be noted. Starfleet and the early Federation are built on the reconstituted pieces of a shattered world, and that culture is still scarred by the memory of near annihilation. In this era of Star Trek, the chronology from Enterprise through Discovery into the original series, mankind is standing up and rebuilding, full of hope for a better future, but underneath that optimism is the echo of a cataclysmic war. There's been terrible violence and hate in collective memory. Naturally, then, our collective shadow manifests as an imperialist war machine built on treachery and violence. But by the time of DS9, life in the Federation has been absurdly comfortable for generations. You can ask a wall for cake and ice cream and it just manifests. In terms of influence and military might, the Federation towers above most of the neighboring civilizations, and humanity sits at the very top of that tower. It's been too easy for too long. Easy enough for relatively small moral failings to become amplified by their comparison to an unattainable ideal rather than to the struggles that reach the point of reflection. Doubt creeps in. Guilt festers for all the noble deeds done by the Federation. Some begin to wonder if their place at the top of that hill is deserved. Could it be that we have so much more than others because we cheated them out of it somehow? And if so, how should we be punished? The fall of the Terran Empire and slavery for those who were once masters. But what about the non-humans in the Mirror Universe? We're back to that idea of collective shadow and a kind of subjective space. We always see it through predominantly human eyes. If a group of Klingons breached the Mirror Universe, I suspect it would present a manifestation of very different fears, latent desires, and forbidden impulses. And I think Discovery supports this. In the first season, while Burnham and her compatriots are in the Mirror Universe, they try to form an alliance with the non-human resistance movements. It's a human-centric Mirror Universe. Everyone else is everyone else, a medley of otherness. That group is led by a Klingon, a counterpart of Voq, who is acting very un-Klingon here.
Yet here you are speaking in a foreign language, placing your faith in the cultural customs of others.
I am here. I have survived, only on the shoulders of my comrades.
Because this is a human mirror, with human motives and assumptions mapped onto the aliens. And if it turns us into xenocidal monsters bent on conquest, so does it also make them more like what we aspire to be, but excluding us.
Klingon, whose pride of honor is eternally fused with his identity as a warrior, stands side by side with a Vulcan, who cannot possibly comprehend his need for aggressive emotional expression.
Which isn't to say that they aren't real people. It's Star Trek, throwing some technobabble about subspace distortion and the quantum field matrix creating an observer-dependent pocket universe, deriving its form from the subconscious of the observer. Mirror Spock is a very real guy, capable of independent action, but he's a dark reflection of how the rest of the crew perceives Spock rather than Spock himself. Which suggests that every Trek culture or species carries their own mirror universe as a sort of inverted race memory, the essence of all those things that their culture finds abhorrent about themselves. The Klingon mirror universe is probably full of devious, lying cowards. And maybe they're all starting to blend as the different civilizations have more and more contact with each other. Some reflection of the cultural diffusion that's happening in and around the Federation. Each race's self-image increasingly becomes defined in part by how others see them. Just as the Mirror Universe sometimes has living counterparts of people who have died in the Prime, the idea of them can live on in those around them. Chief O'Brien is a curious anomaly here. He's a decent, hardworking guy in both universes. In the Prime universe, he's carrying around some rather dark stuff from his time fighting the Cardassians, but the people around him don't see too much of that. To them, he's the reliable, overworked guy that gets shit done. And so, that's how he shows up in their reflected world. I'm thinking of it more as a collective than an individual projection, but I do wonder if it had been O'Brien rather than Bashir in that first incursion, if a somewhat different Mirror O'Brien would have manifested. Looking to Kira as an indicator, the freedom fighter struggling against the brutal Cardassian occupation, now a brutal enforcer of tyranny working alongside the Cardassians. That flipped self, the wrong paths not taken, is something that's always with us, individually and as a civilization. The Mirror Universe is one of the many ways that Star Trek gives an insight into our own culture, our hopes, our fears, lessons learned, and some that never quite sink in. When used well, it can tell us something about the characters and even foreshadow things to come. For example, the Enterprise Mirror Universe episode not only shows us a raw side of Captain Archer's ambition, with him planning to seize the throne, but if that long-rumored post-Enterprise series with Archer as the president of the Federation ever happens, That old episode takes on a bit more weight. That drive to power was always there in him, just attenuated and moderated in the Federation. Contrasted with Discovery, which really fumbled it. Captain Lorca was one of the most interesting characters in that first season. Early on, he's set up with some internal conflicts, like he's struggling to reconcile the Federation ideals that he sincerely believes in with his lived experience of war and the brutal realities of interstellar politics. But instead, all of that was waved away because he's the evil copy from the Mirror Universe. But it's about us too. The Federation is a brighter reflection of America. It strides where we stumble, but both the Federation and the United States have grown out of war to expand far beyond their beginnings and welcome others to be part of their journey. And things have gotten easy. Easy enough that some wonder if we deserve it all as old dangers fade from thought and we begin to amplify every historical sin and moral failing as an indictment of the whole, spawning grossly exaggerated shame and self-hate. There are real questions to grapple with, questions that Star Trek has always taken on. And in that sense, Kurtzman-era Trek fits its time, dodging the hard questions and missing the point. Unless, of course, there's the unintentional point. A culture that has lost its way, that doesn't believe in anything, that shuns its own greatness, will have a very lame and boring dark side. It's a bad sign if you find yourself in the Mirror Universe, but it's even worse if you can't tell whether or not you're in it.
All attempts to communicate with the locals have thus far failed.